You're acting like a detective. You're keeping screenshots of text messages. You're saving emails. You're continuing to ask yourself, why did this happen? And the sign that you're healing from that is you're no longer replaying those stories. You're no longer a detective. And in today's video, what I want to do is we're going to talk about the 4 ways that you can know that you're healing from narcissistic abuse. A narcissistic relationship and being under narcissistic abuse is brutal. Like, it is hard. It is chaotic. Your brain becomes so obsessed with like all the things that they have done, that they're doing. It's confusing. You're just exhausted. But I want you to know that healing is possible. And today I want to show you how you can recognize it in your own life. And then at the end of this, I want you to stick around because I want to share a way that you can connect with me for coaching and helping you to maybe continue to heal from this relationship, to get out of the relationship, or to continue your process of fighting through and becoming who you were made to be to get away from this relationship. I also have a community, and you can click the link, a private community for people who man, you may be struggling hard. And I've got people in this community right now that are there and are kind of in the same place that you are. So stick around to the end because there's going to be a way that you can get in both of those with my coaching and in my community. So point number 1 of how do you know if you're healing from narcissistic abuse is you stop replaying the story. Because when you're stuck in the chaos of narcissistic abuse, your brain becomes so obsessed with the story, right? Where you're literally, and I know this for a fact because I've done it, where you spend hours trying to go back on every conversation, where you're piecing together what the narcissist did, what they said, and why. It's almost like you become detective. You create timelines, you're keeping records, you're keeping emails, and what you're doing is you're trying to come up with a logical answer as to why this person does or did these things. Why in the world did they do this? What in the world? Even at times, I know that for me, I've gone into a meeting with this when I was dealing with this thing is the narcissist. And I would go in there and I'm like, okay, I've got all this information. I've got all these things. And then my brain would just turn off. I found myself apologizing for things that I never even did. Like what? And then you leave that meeting or that thing and you're like, what just happened? Because they did some like brain judo on you where you're just like, oh man, I don't remember anything. And so what do? You start keeping notes, you start keeping track of stuff. You're like, oh, next time, I'm going to get you. Well, here's how you know you're healing is you stop replaying the story. You stop keeping records. You stop trying to piece it all together because you realize you're never going to find the solution for why this person has done those things. So it's about letting go. The second sign is the emotional intensity starts to diminish. So what that means is a big sign that you're healing is when you used to talk about the abuse of this narcissistic relationship that you're in or coworker or whatever it is, when you would talk about it, you would like get just flooded with emotion. Like you would get into a tailspin of either anger or tears. Maybe you couldn't even mention their name without it just completely breaking you down. And you would, man, one of my clients that I work with, literally when they would bring their name up, they would start to shake. Like I'm watching them just like lose it because it was so emotionally triggering for them to even say their name. And then they would get angry and confused and would just bring up all this stuff. But here's what's cool. As I've been working with this person, as they're coming out of this abusive relationship and as they are healing, what's neat is they can now say their name, that person's name, and the emotional charge has faded away. And they can talk about that experience and we can work into the healing process of it without the gut-wrenching feeling of, ugh, it looks like calmness where there used to be chaos. Acceptance instead of anger. That is a huge sign that you're healing from the narcissistic abuse. Number 3, you start to develop clear boundaries. I have a worksheet that I've done on how you can set boundaries, and I'm going to put it in the chat, and I'm also going to put it in the notes below, so you can go and click on that and get that sheet on how to set boundaries. But one way that you know that you're healing from narcissistic abuse is if you start to set boundaries, and they're essential essential in all areas of our life. And I've got a video on boundaries that you can go and watch. But narcissists make us forget that we have boundaries. Like they don't understand boundaries. And when you put boundaries up against them, oh my gosh, I'm just telling you, it freaks them out and they get mad because you're not giving them their food. I call it narc food. And they hate it. But when you set up these boundaries, man, and I always picture a boundary like a square. I don't know why, but like when I'm talking to my clients about setting boundaries, I always do this. Okay, so what it looks like is you've been in situations where you've allowed things that you would never let anybody else do. Like you would never let anybody else get away with it. And you're like, what? Why am I letting this person do that? This client that I was speaking about a second ago, they would never allow people to speak to them that certain way. But somehow they found themselves excusing the behavior of this narcissist. And they were constantly, boundary breaking. You wouldn't let other people talk to you this way, but this person, you're like, man, I just kind of let it happen. Well, that's not good. Don't allow people to talk to you a certain way, no matter what. And you need to call them out. And calling out a narcissist is one of the most, it can be very frightening. It can be very frightening. But honestly, you start to heal when you start to set boundaries. When you reclaim those boundaries, you start to say no again without feeling guilty. When they ask you to do something and you're like, man, I'm not doing that. And you say no without guilt, that's huge. And I'm able to see this client when they're able to tell this person no, that they are reclaiming their boundaries, they're taking their power back and they're setting the limits and they're finally realizing, here's what's so big is that it's not selfish to protect your peace with anybody. It's not selfish to do that. But when you're coming out of a narcissistic abusive relationship or you're in one, you don't have any peace because it's all about them. It's all about them. And they need you to feed them, like give them all the things that they need. So how do you know you're healing? When you set those boundaries. And you realize, no, I am important in this whole thing. Before I get into the fourth thing, I want you to know that I would love to work with you. Are you struggling? Are you in the depths of depression right now? Do you feel anxious all the time? Or do you want to set goals and you just feel like I have no goals in life? I don't know what the next step is for me. Or maybe you're like, man, I want to help people. Maybe you feel like you're stuck in a job and you don't know how to get out of it. Well, man, I want to help you. Man, send me a message. You can go to the link in the description of this video and you can find time that works best for you on my calendar and click it, and man, we'll get on a call and just kind of break it down and see how can I help you? How can I work with you to take that next step, to get you to stop feeling so anxious all the time, to maybe help you heal in this narcissistic relationship that you're in. Or maybe you want to set goals and you actually want to hit them. And that's the great thing about having a life coach is that I'm not just a counselor who you go and meet with once a week. I'm actually somebody who's going to keep you accountable. That's right. I'm going to text you. I'm going to call you. I'm going to check in on you. You can do the same. Like, hey, Michael, I'm struggling today. You get that when you have a coach. That's to me a huge difference in a coach and a therapist is with me. I make myself available to help you, to help set you free. So man, reach out, let me know what I can do to help you. Or maybe you have a family member that's struggling. You're like, man, they need to meet with Michael. I know, let's go. I would love to meet with them and let me know how I can help you. So the fourth thing and the last thing that you can find out if you're healing from a narcissistic relationship, narcissistic abuse, is you stop seeking their validation. This is big because narcissists thrive on keeping you hooked. Always seeking their approval. They thrive on that. And again, talking about this client who I've helped work through this abusive situation, they were constantly asking themselves, did I do enough to make them happy? Why didn't they give me the validation I needed? And so they would go overboard trying to please someone who is never going to be satisfied. They're never going to be satisfied because it's never enough, because they are the best. They have all the things. And so you stop seeking their validation, meaning, like I said in the first thing, you're done taking notes. You're done trying to look for certain things that kind of make you happy in the relationship or in the working situation. You're like, oh yeah, well they said this, so it's good. And or you stop trying to think through all the things that, like, okay, maybe they do like me, maybe and you're looking for their validation, and finding validation from a narcissist is like finding validation from this picture back here. Like, they're not going to give it to you. They're not. They don't understand empathy. They don't understand and what you're feeling. They don't walk into a room and think, okay, everybody here is feeling a certain way. No. They walk into the room and they think they are the best. You can never outdo them. And why would they ever try to make you feel better and make you feel like you've done a good job? Because if they do that, then they haven't done a good job. So it's just not going to happen. So how do you know you're healing? Is you stop worrying about their validation. Because here's the thing. True freedom is knowing that your value doesn't depend on anybody else's opinion. The truth is, you don't need anybody's validation. The Lord is the greatest that you need validation from. Your only peace is going to come from, man, I know what the Lord thinks of me and nobody else. Guys, I'm telling you, that's so peaceful. And not walking around and thinking, man, I want to make sure, this person's good with me. This person's good. Are we good? 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 And sometimes when you've experienced trauma or pain, you always are kind of like finding out if you're good with everybody. And that's okay. But you're looking at somebody who has ran that race before, like, hey, are we good? And trying to impress people and trying to make sure that we're good and trying to move up the ladder, if you will, and trying to do all these things. And I've come to a realization in my healing process and in working really hard in this, is that it doesn't matter what other people think, as long as I am walking with the Lord and I'm doing what He has called me to do, and I'm in step with Him. What's really great is when you are able to live that way, nothing else matters, and it's super peaceful. And a narcissist hates that in you. They hate it. They want to feel wanted. They want you to come to them with all the things. And when you can be okay with who you are and you're not trying to please anybody else and you're just trying to live your life for the Lord, man, it's beautiful, because you can start to trust yourself and what you're doing is right and not getting the validation from the narcissist. So any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know that healing is within your reach. Like, it's right there. It is. And if you're looking for support, I want you to know, like I said before, I have a community of people. It's called the Circle of Hope. I'll put a link in the description. I would love for you to check it out. You can check it out for 7 days for free. After that, it's $24 a month, and it's the best $24 that you'll spend a month. I promise you. How do I know that? Because you're gonna get a community of people who are honest and real. You're gonna get a community of people who, when you're struggling, you can put it in the community and say, man, I'm struggling today. And they're gonna reach out to you, give you verses. You're going to get a daily devotional from me. You're also gonna get group coaching in there twice a month. So you're gonna get that in the community, and you're gonna get just closer to your healing. You're gonna stop doing it alone. It's $24 a month. It's a lot cheaper than doing my one-on-one coaching. My one-on-one coaching is from hundreds to thousands of dollars, but it also is healing people. And those are investments that people are taking, and I'm watching them walk out their life way more free than when they start. I love that about the coaching process, because they get on the first call and they're wherever they are. But then as we start working, if I start working with my clients, things change in their life and there's a light to them. So there's many ways to get involved. There's many ways. So I encourage you, don't just watch this and click off and think, okay, I'm gonna wait another week, or I'm just gonna push it off, or I'm gonna do whatever it is. Man, make the choice today that you're gonna invest in yourself, because you need help. You know that you need help, and you keep doing the same thing the same way and you're getting the same results. So I encourage you, man, if you're struggling, reach out. Don't let money stop you from doing that. Man, you invest in so many different things. Like, you went to Starbucks this morning, you've invested in all these other things that don't really matter, but you're not willing to invest in yourself. You're not willing to take the jump into you getting some accountability and getting some therapy with somebody who has been there, and someone who has walked through it, and someone who's going to take you out of it with the Lord. So I encourage you to do that today.